we doing today, Vic?
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you guys for being here and coming to see us. And I know you're probably here for the mac and cheese, and that's totally okay. So that's what we're going to be making today. We're going to make plant-based mac and cheese with broccoli so that you can get your greens in for the day.
So it's pretty straightforward. This recipe is on our blog. We've got a couple different versions of it. We do it with beets sometimes and spinach. This is going to be straightforward sauce with the broccoli added in after. So I've already got my water boiling. This is, we're obviously doing a bigger quantity than normal, so we'll send you guys for home use. But I've got 3 cups of water in here. Normally I would do 4, but I don't want it to be too watery, so I can add more later. So I'm going to want that to boil. You can see it's already started. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the veggies to this. It's going to look a lot like you're making a soup at first, but once we blend it all up, you're going to be surprised at how much it actually looks like a cheesy sauce. So first thing we've got here is potatoes. We've peeled them and chopped them. I've got 4 cups here. We're going to put that in this boiling water. The potatoes take the longest to cook, so that's why they go in first. They don't need to be mushy, but you do want to make sure they're not raw. So that's going to be about 10 minutes, and we'll start on the rest of the veggies. So you want to...
What I also do best is watch Christopher do the work.
Yeah. Vic's going to start chopping carrots. We need about 1 cup and 1/3 of carrots. And I'm going to, unfortunately, start on onions, and there's a 100% chance that I'm going to cry. So.
I made sure to let him cut the onion.
So just while we're chopping, just because there's not too much to talk about as far as the recipe, we'll talk a little bit about us. We've been vegan since May 2016, so about 1.5 years. We were vegetarian about 6 years before that, so November 2010, so we're coming up on 7 years vegetarian and almost 2 years vegan. For us, it's always been just about the animals. There's really no other motivation. I could pretend it's for health, but that'd be a lie. So it's really just always been about the animals. So I was curious, actually, to ask you guys, just because we've been to a lot of Veg Fest. We've been to LA, New York, Toronto, Ottawa. We just love to see the community that exists. And I'm curious, how many of you out here are not vegan? Anyone not vegan? Not picking on you, just curious. Yeah, so there's always about, 10, 15 people in the audience who aren't, which is pretty cool because more and more people are interested in veganism, vegan cooking, whether they're looking to do it 100% of the time. Progress is progress. So good on you guys for being here, for learning about this, and being interested in making a change. So if you have any questions for us about what it's been like, we're an open book. You can come talk to us. You can ask questions right here and right now if you like, and we're happy to answer them.
What's pretty cool, too, about veganism and just eliminating dairy and meat from what you eat is the amount of inflammation that you reduce in your body. About 1.5 years ago, I guess I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that was attacking my spine. And they told me that I would need to be on medication for the rest of my life. Every 4 to 6 weeks, I would need to go for injections for about 6 hours at a time. And that just seemed like mind-boggling to me to need to do that. And in changing the way we eat as well and just getting rid of dairy on top of already not eating meat, I was able to completely stop medication, and it's been almost 1 year. And all that just from being able to reduce the amount of inflammation that was in my body from what I was eating. So good for your health, and good for the environment, and good for the animals. It's a win-win.
So back to the food here. I've got a 1 1/3 cup of carrots. So we're going to add those in with the potatoes. Make sure they're submerged in the water. And I've cranked up the heat a little bit here because it wasn't quite boiling. And we'll just let that continue to cook. We've got 7 more minutes on that. For the onion, I don't know, who here is familiar with Dr. Michael Greger? NutritionFacts.org? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you are. So he's really big on whole foods, especially ones that are full of color. So when you're making food choices, you can choose between red onion and white onion. You can choose between red potatoes, white potatoes. You can choose between, something that's kind of pale looking or something that's full of vibrant color. And so as much as possible, we try to choose vegetables and fruits that are full of color. So when we're using onions, we always go for red onion just because there's just more to it. So I need 1 1/3 cup of onion as well, so I'm a little short there. So Who here has had vegan mac and cheese before? Okay, so there's a bunch of you who haven't, so this is going to be the first time, so I'm excited. We use the word cheese, I mean, I guess somewhat liberally. It's not mozzarella, you know. It's got a cheesy texture. It's got a cheesy taste. A very common cheese-flavored substitute in vegan cuisine is nutritional yeast. But for somebody who's new to veganism, that can sound just a little bit weird. So we try to just do recipes. Like we use nutritional yeast often enough, but we try to make recipes that would attract someone who's doing this for the first time. And nutritional yeast just sort of scares people. So there's no nutritional yeast in this recipe. So I've got 1 1/3 cup of onion here. It's going to go in with the rest of my veggies. Again, I will stir that, make sure it's all under water. And we need 2 cloves of garlic. You want to chop that one, and I'll chop this one.
What's cool about mac and cheese, too, I think it was like one of the first meals that we made when we went vegan that we were like, okay, this is really good. We can do without dairy.
Yeah. So we had tried a couple of times in our 6 years as vegetarians to go vegan and struggled a little bit. But we like to travel, and so we ended up in LA. This was in May 2016, and we met Mary Mattern. She's Nom Yourself on Instagram. She's a vegan chef, and we were talking to her for a little while and just learning a little bit more about the ethics of dairy and eggs. And just so in that trip, we went to a few more vegan restaurants than we'd been to and just hanging out with people who live this way, basically. And we sort of realized, you know what, this is totally doable. And so we committed to do it. And part of the process and sticking with it was the Instagram account. So we said, you know what, if we start to share these recipes and this food on Instagram, you know, maybe it'll hold us accountable. Maybe it'll inspire other people. And then that just sort of took off. So
it was also my secret way of making sure Christopher wasn't just going to deep fry everything, because the day after we went vegan, he was like, deep frying cauliflower, deep frying rice, deep frying anything that we would never have deep fried anything before.
So Vic was not on board with that, so we had to find some healthier options. So I've got all my veggies in there now. I'm going to leave that another probably 3 minutes, and then I'm going to add the spices to it and the vegan butter. So this is Melt. It's a butter that we use quite often. It's completely plant-based, and when you put it in a pot or a frying pan and you cook something with it, you would be surprised at how similar it is. They come in these very convenient sticks. It also comes in these containers like that, so you can scoop it. But it is, so I'm sure some of you, I know I did when I was a kid, ate lots of mac and cheese, and you know, one of those secret ingredients at the end, not so secret, but it's lots of butter. So that looks like a lot, but we are making a quadruple batch. I 4 times the recipe today, so don't get too scared off. This is 1 1/3 cup of vegan butter going in here, and I'm going to put it in with the veggies just so that it melts nicely and soaks up some of the flavor from the spices that I'm about to add. So that's 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup, and 1/3 cup.
And if ever you guys forget to add it to the boiling water, we've also done it when it was just ready to go in the Vitamix.
It's the reason we like this one. There are other ones on the market. This one happens to be organic, also certified fair trade, and non-GMO. So we're not exclusively organic at home or non-GMO, but whenever possible, especially with processed products, we try to do that.
And it's essentially the same price.
Okay, so the butter's in, which means now we're going to go to the spices. I've already measured out a teaspoon of white pepper. I prefer white pepper. It's got kind of a bolder flavor than cracked pepper. And when I crack black pepper, the chunks are kind of big. Ground white pepper is nice and smooth, and there's no crunchy bits.
But again, if you don't have white pepper at home, it doesn't matter. Black pepper works.
The next thing we're going to add is salt. You can use table salt, kosher salt. This is Malden salt. It's not quite as sharp. You could literally take chunks of this and put it in your mouth. It's a little bit smoother. So we're going to do about 2 teaspoons of that. I don't think you can see that, but maybe you can. It's kind of like crystals. Big. This is a large one, but most of them are little bits of these salt crystals. So it's larger chunks, and it's not so fine. Next up on the spices is our paprika and cayenne. So I did a test batch the other day because we always mix this up, and I was a little heavy on the cayenne, so I'm not going to add too much more, just because we don't want to make it too spicy, but it will have a little kick to it.
Christopher's a wimp when it comes to spice.
I'm terrible with
spicy. The spicier, the better.
And believe it or not, my mother is Jamaican Chinese, so I'm a quarter Jamaican, quarter Chinese. My father's from Switzerland. But you'd think I would be better with spice, but I've never been so great with spicy foods. So that is the cayenne. That's from Trader Joe's, but you can use any cayenne you like. And the next spice is going to be paprika. So this is Hungarian smoked paprika, and we are going to do half a teaspoon of that. That's pretty good. I like to, when I cook, I don't get too hung up on measurements. There's enough pressure as it is when you're cooking to make it make things work. So just sort of go with your gut. There are a lot of ways you can change this up by adding things to it, a little less spicy, a little more spicy. And I don't like to say that something tastes good or bad, because I've had dishes that I find so salty and someone else is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So go with your gut, go with your taste, especially when you're dealing with the spices. The veggies are going to take care of your consistency. The spices is really going to be up to you.
So if you're like me and you like things a little bit spicier, you can always add it afterwards.
Vic loves spice. I just can't do it. So the last thing is turmeric. So turmeric is an awesome ingredient. It's anti-inflammatory, which is great for you. It's best absorbed when taken with pepper. So your body doesn't absorb it as well if you don't eat it without pepper, white pepper, black pepper. So whenever you are taking turmeric, it's good to add a little bit of pepper. The Dijon mustard here is going to go in the blender with the cashews. Oh, that is cooking. We are doing pretty good here. So I'm going to put those spices in now, let it cook for 1 more minute. There's not really too much danger of overcooking your veggies, just because we are going to blend them anyway. The only thing you're going to want to be careful of is having too much water evaporate, because this whole pot, you're not going to drain this. The liquid, that's why it's important to measure it, is going to be part of your sauce.
Full disclosure, we've never made this much mac and cheese before.
Yeah, so this is a big recipe. I'm not sure what you can see on the screen. Oh, you can sort of see in the pot. That's pretty cool. So you see it's already quite yellow. The turmeric helps. The carrots help with that. And that is bubbling nicely. So we'll leave that another minute or two. We always do between 10 and 15 minutes. The lemon is juiced. So let's move over to the blender here. This is where we are going to make sure that our sauce is nice and creamy. So this is a cashew-based sauce. So normally when you're making it at home, you'd need about half a cup of cashews. We're doing 2 cups here because it's so much bigger. So I just want to show you guys here what happens when you soak your nuts. You're always going to make sure that when you're eating nuts, you're soaking them. They're much easier to digest. A lot of nuts have, I'm blanking now on what it's called, but there's sort of a coating on nuts that makes them harder to digest, so that, well, we're not going to talk about why. But anyways, so that was half a cup of nuts yesterday, flush, and after you soak them, they swell up. So this half a cup of nuts is more like 3/4 cup of nuts now. So part of the reason you're going to soak them is so that you get a lot more liquid in them to make them easier to blend. And if you happen to be making almond milk or cashew milk or whatever milk, having them soaked in advance is much better for you for digesting them. So these are the 2 cups of pre-soaked cashews. And when I say soaked, I usually mean overnight. So I had those in the fridge overnight. If you haven't had the time to soak them in advance, you can soak them in boiling water for 10, 15 minutes. I don't mean like boil them. I mean just pour boiling water over them, and that will help to absorb some water a little bit quicker.
You also don't need to just soak what you're going to use that day. I like to make a lot of cashew cakes, and I always soak whatever cashews I have on hand, and I leave them in the fridge, and that's sort of like extra motivation for me to make dessert. So it's a win-win again.
So Vic has juiced our lemons here. We're going to use 4 tablespoons. Normally you'd use 1 tablespoon, but as I mentioned, we've done this 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you guys know I can count.
In terms of the cashews, too, you just want to make sure that when you're buying them, they're raw and not roasted. Otherwise, soaking them won't do anything. And you can find raw cashews at a lot of health food stores. You can find them at Basse, which is where we got them, because they have essentially all the nuts that you can want. And you can also find them in Asian markets or anything like that.
So we are going to take about a teaspoon of Dijon. And I just don't want to get it too close up on the sides of the Vitamix, just because it'll be hard to scrape that off if I do that. There we go. And so that is pretty much all you need for your sauce. So this blender here, we're going to add the contents of that directly to it. We're going to blend it up. This is bubbling perfectly. I'm just going to poke a potato here and see how soft they are.
What not to do in the kitchen. Use a knife to poke
Yeah,
stuff.
I know. I should have a fork, but it's not the end of the world. Oh, yeah, those carrots are nice and soft, too. So this is good to go. So I will turn that off. This is an induction cooktop, which even though we have a stove at home, I use all the time, just because it's way faster for boiling water or cooking anything, and it's a lot more precise than just your standard stovetop. Unless you have gas, but we don't have a gas stovetop.
Not yet.
Okay, so I may have overestimated how much room I have in here. That will be okay, I think. I don't know if there's a max fill line on a Vitamix. If there is, we're probably at it or past it, but we're living on the edge, so. Living on the veg, actually, we should say. Okay. I'm going to put that here for now.
There's also a couple different sizes of Vitamix. This is one of the largest containers they have, so don't try this at home.
That is. So that's going to be for our pasta. Pasta. Is it pasta? Hands up if it's pasta. Hands up if it's pasta. Let's start with pasta. And is it pasta? Oh, some of you guys are not participating. It's kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. So the cashews we're using are from Basse. They're all packaged and prepared here in Quebec, in Laval actually, and they're pre-packaged for sale in a lot of stores, so you can find those elsewhere. It's just what we sort of stick to because we know it. You're going to want to make sure you're buying raw cashews. Roasted cashews aren't going to cut it, so you're going to use raw cashews for this. So that I'm not going to blend quite yet. I want to make sure that my noodles are ready. So we have a little bit of time here. So now I am going to. I think I need another pot of water to make this pasta. It's a lot of sauce. We can do extra. Give you guys a bit bigger portion. So we just need to rinse this. Could we rinse this? It's a bit hot, so just, thank you. And the noodle we're using today is just spiral macaroni. It says Scooby-Doo. I don't know if that's the official name or what they call it, but it's sort of like that. And it's our favorite because it's bigger than just an elbow macaroni. So that's what we use at home.
And if you're trying to avoid gluten, there's a lot of gluten-free options on the market as well. Some taste better than others.
We use Go-Go Quinoa a lot for gluten. They have quinoa-based noodles, and they're also from Quebec. You have enough? That's enough, eh?
I think so.
So yeah, so they're also from Quebec, so Go-Go Quinoa makes gluten-free. There's another brand, I don't think they're in Canada yet, called Banza. It's sort of a chickpea-based pasta, which is kind of interesting.
I think if I had to choose, though, I would go with Go-Go Quinoa.
Yeah, I'm a gluten fan. I have no problem with gluten, so I don't try to avoid. We were trying for a little while, but I'm happy being a gluten-full vegan as opposed to gluten-free. So that, I think, is going to do it. We're going to cook this 7 minutes al dente. That is a rolling boil, so let's start on that. And the broccoli, you can either steam it, or you can just throw it in with your noodles, but not from the beginning or it'll go mushy. So when there's about 3-4 minutes left on this 7 to 8 minute cooking time, we're going to throw the broccoli in. So that should be enough for that. You don't want to put too much, I'm not going to cover it either, sorry. You don't want to put too much pasta for your water because it needs to soak some of it up, and you're not making, rice, you're making pasta, so make sure that you don't overdo it. Usually it's about a cup of water, or 4 cups of water, so which is about a liter, to 100 grams of pasta, 150 grams of pasta. Sometimes if I'm really feeling precise, I'll measure it. Usually I'll just eyeball it like I just did. So we will let that come to a boil, and it is 28 right now, so at about 35, this will be ready, and about 32, 33, we're going to put the broccoli in there. Okay, so now we're just going to wait for this. See, this is the sort of thing where experience comes into play, where I would have factored in how long this was going to take to cook, but I didn't. So here we are just waiting for water to boil, which they say takes forever when you watch a pot boil.
Mm-hmm. How many of you guys have tried making your own plant-based mac and cheese at home?
And did you like it? Yeah, that's good. There are a lot of recipes out there. Butternut squash, you can do this. You can do it with nutritional yeast.
Sweet potato.
Sweet potato. They all sort of look the same. You'd never know. Truthfully, at home, we've only ever done this one. We've tried lots in restaurants.
We've done some with like spinach as the base, so it comes out
Oh,
green.
yeah,
We've
they
done
come
some
out
with
green.
beets, so it comes out this like really, really bright pink.
Yeah, those are all on the blog, the beet ones. And then it's like a bright red. Thank you. It's like a bright red. So I am going to boil a little more water just so we have a backup. So also, because I'm mostly lazy, normally at home I would just chop the potatoes with the skin on. But I don't know if everyone likes potato skins, so I left them on. It's also a little bit starchier. It could get a little bit sticky. But because we eat it right away, normally it doesn't matter. Another thing I should mention about eating it right away, we always make extra, actually. And so we'll have about half of it, and then the rest of it I'll put in mason jars, exactly like that one over there. So I'll fill, this is runoff water, but anyway, I'll fill 2 or 3 of these in the fridge, and then you just scoop it out into a pot the next day, the next couple days, warm it up, cook some pasta, and then you have mac and cheese for a few days. It keeps really well in the fridge, probably up to about a week, because it's all been cooked and there's lots of spices in there, and it's sealed in a mason jar. You wouldn't have to worry about that.
It's a great way to meal prep.
Yeah.
I feel like normally when you see meal prep stuff, all you think of is salads, but it doesn't need to be just that.
And there's really no reason, if you're down with that, you could eat this cold. I'm going to eat it warm all the time just because I prefer it like that. Our blog is avegan, ehvegan.ca. ehvegan. So when we named it, we thought this is so clever, you know, Canada A kind of thing, avegan. And then every time we tell someone the name of our blog, we have to spell it. That's how you know if you pick the wrong name. You have to spell it every time you say it out loud. So avegan, ehvegan.ca. And so we have a lot of recipes up there. There are, I think, 4 different mac and cheese recipes. One of them's a little bit spicier, which is the one I made today, but I toned down the spice a bit. One has a lot less spice in it. Then there are 2 that are beet-based. And you're going to see them bright, bright pink, bright red. You can't really miss them. Okay, so let's put the broccoli in here now. Again, the broccoli, there's not really any measurement to it. It just depends how much broccoli you want in your pasta. And it could be anything. We've done this with cauliflower, like chunks of it. I love cauliflower. We've done, like we said, with spinach. You can add anything to this. I suppose you could even, though we've never done it, you could even add a vegan sausage, maybe a Gusta sausage, chunks of that. I wouldn't cook it with it. I would just make sure that at the end, once you've mixed all your sauce in, you put some chunks of vegan sausage.
And normally when we serve this, we make homemade breadcrumbs made with nutritional yeast, more cashews, and a different assortment of spices, but we didn't do that today. But that's also a good thing to put on top. And of course, avocado is always a good one.
Sprouts too, fresh sprouts, microgreens go nicely on top. We are working on a recipe book, so a small cookbook, that's going to be launched on December 1st, and that'll have the recipe for our breadcrumbs in there and a few other ones. Brownies, mac and cheese will be in there, but we've given most of our mac and cheese recipes on the blog already. I think that'll probably do it. Whoops. Splash zone. Okay. Like I said, you could also sort of just steam this as well, but we don't have a steamer here or enough pots to really steam things, so you can just cook it with your pasta too.
Also, I'm chopping these a bit smaller than we normally do because I have no idea how big the cups they're giving you are. So if they're small cups, I don't want you to just end up with a piece of broccoli. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Have you guys been to any other veg fests other than Montreal? No? Ottawa?
Yeah.
Toronto?
Toronto, man, they put on a big show over there. We went to the Veg Food Fest in September. I think they had 35,000 people come through in 3 days. Quite a show. We just went to New York as well in October to the Vegan Festival there. And it was fun, but we waited 3 hours in line, not to get in, just to buy vegan chicken wings. I'm not even exaggerating. It was a legitimate 3 hours.
It might have been more.
Yeah, it was something else. It's a good thing. People want to try them, but that's a long time to wait.
It was pretty funny. There was 2 lines, so I wasn't sure which one to wait in, and then there was one that was slightly shorter, so I was like, eh. I asked the person, I'm like, hey, are you waiting in line for the chicken wings? He said, yeah. So I switched lanes. I was riding solo. Christopher was off getting us some food elsewhere. Switched lanes, and then only when we got closer to the end of the line, I found out that was for pickup after being in line for at least 2 hours.
And she wasn't even there with me. I had to bribe a guy, be like, hey, can you order my food for me? I'll pay you for it. Okay, so that needs just 1 more minute, which means we are going to start on this. And I don't know how loud this is going to be in the microphone, but we're going to...
Is it plugged in?
What? Is it plugged in? Yeah. Oh, there's a switch on this one. We have 2 Vitamixes at home. I know. And the other one doesn't have a switch. This one does.
Can you guys still hear me? Yeah? Oh, gosh. Maybe not. Yeah.
We got the tamper. Normally you'd have what they call a tamper, a stick to sort of mix it around because you don't want any chunks, but I forgot to bring that. So I'm just trying to create that spiral just to make sure it's nice and blended. There we go. So you don't need a Vitamix to do this. You could do it with any blender. We've had a Vitamix for years, and we just happen to love it. But don't feel like you can't do this if you haven't got one of these.
You think you need this, or should I just spank you? Just kidding.
It's not that kind of show. That's pretty good. I don't think we'll have any trouble. So when I did 4 times the recipe, I should have used 4 cups of water, but I was afraid it just might be too liquidy. Same with the salt. I did not do 4 times the salt just because I didn't want to overdo it. But that looks pretty smooth. I don't think we'll have any trouble with that. So this is most definitely done.
So just to finish off that story at that food festival in New York City about those chicken wings. So finally, when he bribed the person who was actually waiting in line to order the food before us, right after we ordered, the vendor that was selling the wings said they were sold out and that they needed to close up shop. So we ended up sharing with him our food.
That is hot. Okay, so I put this in a colander, which is in another pot, just to drain the water. I'm improvising up here. And we are going to add the sauce directly to these noodles. And perfect, we're right on schedule here for this.
I mean, normally at home we would just try a noodle to make sure it's okay.
Yeah, I had one. It's good. You want to try them? They're real hot, though. I may have overdone it on the noodles, to be honest. So you want to bring me that Vitamix?
So you guys can see it's pretty creamy.
And I'm going to put a little extra just because I'm a big fan of saucy. So that's a mess. Anyways. I think I may even need more. I'm sure there's more than enough here for everybody. Yeah, I'll take more.
That looks good.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm in charge.
If it's too saucy, you know why.
So now, with all that left over, what we'd normally do is we put it in a jar and put it in the fridge, and it's great for the rest of the week. Okay.
Thank you so much. How is it? Be honest.
It tastes good. The noodle's slightly overdone because I got distracted over there talking about my tamper. Anyway, the heat is off, by the way. I've turned the heat off as soon as I drain the noodles. I'm just using this as a hot plate because I don't have one. So that's ready to go. We can start. Would you want me to bring the pot in the back? Yeah? It's quite hot. I don't think we're going to need that. So there, I'm going to put that in cups for you guys, and they'll come out and serve it, and you let us know what you think. I wish we had some breadcrumbs to offer you, but we don't. But you can get an idea what the sauce tastes like. And again, this is a really versatile recipe. You add a little more water, a little less water. You want a little spicier, just do a little more cayenne. If you're not down with the turmeric, you don't have to add the turmeric. It's still going to be quite yellow from the carrots and the potatoes. What I've also done in the past is instead of adding the onions and the garlic to boiling water, what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of the butter in first. I'll saute the onions until they're caramelized, same with the garlic. Then I'll add the liquid and the potatoes. It's a whole different flavor. So there are a lot of ways you can do this. Most of the recipes that are on the blog are experiments that we've tried, numerous times until finally we find something we like. So you should never be afraid to experiment.
Pause. We only put the experiments that work out on our blog.
That's true. Well, that's what I meant.
Just, want to make sure. How many of you have tried a recipe on a blog that was absolutely terrible?
So
just me?
happened.
Okay. Thanks, Justin.
That's about it. So as soon as that comes out, we're going to be around here because I'd love to know what you guys think.